Chapter 451. Standing behind Olivia, Mona noticed that Olivia had been hesitating for a long while. There was a puzzled expression on her face as she asked, "Miss Fordham, are the clothes not nice enough?" "No, they all look very nice. I'm just feeling a little sad." Mona didn't know about the history between Olivia and Ethan, so she couldn't understand what the sadness meant. "Choose one for me." Olivia decisively looked away. She was too used to wearing cheap clothes, so she only felt at a loss when faced with those luxurious outfits. Standing in front of the wardrobe, Mona picked out the clothes as she muttered, "Miss Fordham, you have a good figure, and you're good looking, too. You even have fair skin. You're just like a model, so you'd look good even if you're wearing a sack." She selected a white dress. It had an elegant design and was well tailored, too. It looked graceful in every aspect. "This one, then. I think it suits you very much, Miss Fordham." Olivia put on the white dress. Smiling, Mona said, "Look how fitting it is. Miss Fordham, everyone can tell from a glance that you're a pampered young lady from a rich family. No one else has the noble demeanor you own." "Young lady." Olivia reached out her left palm. There were lots of calluses on her fair skin. In the year she lost her child, Ethan cut off all her sources of income just to torture her. The Fordhams went bankrupt. Jeff was also hospitalized, so Olivia had to pay high hospital bills every day. Back then, she had abandoned her studies to be a housewife. She used to be a star student in medical school, favored by the supervisor. But then, she ended up having to do physical labor. The pampered princess finally learned what worldly suffering meant. Her fair and tender hands, which used to dance on the piano keys, were now covered in calluses and scars. Also, she was busy working in winter. She had frostbite on the back of her hands, and they were red and swollen. She quit the part-time jobs in the past 6 months, so her hands healed a little. Still, the shadows of her past suffering were visible. When Mona saw Olivia's slightly rough hands, she was even more puzzled. "Miss Fordham, you should have been a pampered young lady before the Fordhams went bankrupt. Have you done rough work before?" Olivia smiled bitterly. "Yes, and not just once." Under Mona's sympathetic gaze, Olivia interrupted what Mona was about to ask. "Help me brush my hair. I can't do it with my hands." "Understood." Picking up the brush, Mona changed the subject. "Look at the bright side, Miss Fordham. Even though Mr. Miller is about to marry Miss Carlton, his heart still belongs to you. Anyone can see that." Olivia didn't want to humor any conversations about Ethan. Hence, Mona shut up as she braided Olivia's hair. "If you grow your hair a little longer, Miss Fordham, you'll look even prettier." Her hair had grown out quite a lot in the past 6 months, but it barely reached her shoulders. With her hair tucked behind her head, she looked gentle and elegant. Olivia didn't want to doll herself up, so Mona chose a pair of delicate pearl earrings for her. "You look pretty even without makeup, Miss Fordham. Mr. Miller was lucky to have married you in the past." Olivia looked at herself in the mirror. The tender look was gone from her face, and her chin was a little sharper now. There was no more liveliness in her features, and a slight sorrowful look could be seen on her face. In the past, she was half a girl and half a woman. But now, she had turned into a whole woman. She was just a woman who had a failed marriage. Crouching next to Olivia, Mona smiled as she looked at Olivia. "I'm supposed to be a little older than you, so why do you always look so grave? You're so pretty, you'd look even prettier if you smile." The word, smile, echoed in Olivia's mind. She realized that she hadn't smiled sincerely in a long time. She even seemed to have forgotten the simple movement of curving her lips. Her reflection in the mirror looked so familiar. But she also felt like she couldn't recognize herself. Chapter 452. Mona was a kind-hearted woman. Even though she didn't come from a rich family, she was always positive and hardworking. Olivia saw shadows of her past self in Mona. She was like the sun, and she lived every day cheerfully. It was as if she would never be defeated by anything. "Just curve your lips a little, like me. When you're in a good mood, your baby will be happy too." It might be due to Mona's warm smile or the mention of the child, which had struck the softest chord in Olivia's heart. Olivia placed her palm on her tummy, the corners of her mouth subconsciously turning up. At that moment, sunlight shone on her face. Olivia, who was filled with a mother's love, was indescribably beautiful. "I told you, you look great when you smile. Miss Fordham, you're the most exquisite person I've ever met. If you join the entertainment industry, you'll be super successful." Olivia shook her head in exasperation. In the past, her dream was to be a doctor. If her future, she couldn't see any future for herself. Her only hope was to give birth to this child without any problems. She didn't dare hope for too much. If she was too greedy, even the things she owned right now would be taken away. Olivia was afraid to lose anything, so she had become timid. She didn't even dare to think about it. Olivia got up to leave. If it weren't for her palm, which fell unnaturally to her side, she would be flawlessly beautiful. Mona followed Olivia to the car. With a face full of smiles, she said, "Enjoy the trip. Don't worry too much." Getting out of the car, Ethan opened the door of the passenger seat for Olivia. He helped her into the car and even thoughtfully put on her seatbelt for her. Back when they were on good terms with each other, she always looked forward to when Ethan set aside a day for her. She would prepare for a camping trip beforehand. Then, over the weekend, they would camp somewhere in the suburbs. When Ethan was with her, he was very kind and good-tempered. He would unconditionally fulfill every request she had. They would set up camp by a creek. Then, he would do the fishing, whereas she was in charge of the barbecue. At night, when the stars came out, she would lean in his arms, counting the stars with him. She never asked for any material things. As long as he took some time to be with her, she would be elated. Back then, Olivia was always smiling. Her eyes curved when she smiled, and she looked cheerful and adorable, like a little fox. He was a composed man, and he was also a few years older than her. Because he had lost his younger sister at a young age, among other reasons, he turned into a man who rarely smiled. It was only when he was around Olivia that he could smile without worry. But the good times were never coming back. Now, as the two sat in the same car, Olivia only kept her gaze straight ahead. Gripping the seatbelt with her hand, she refused to even spare a glance at Ethan. The atmosphere in the car was so quiet that it was scary. Ethan coughed lightly, breaking the silence. "I bought some desserts when I was on my way back. If you're hungry, you can have some." Olivia glanced at the exquisite cakes placed by her side. He had even prepared the fruit tea she liked. "I'm not hungry," she said in a cold voice. As soon as she finished speaking, she heard her stomach rumbling. Olivia fell silent. In reality, she had just thrown up before setting out. Now, her stomach was empty, so of course, it was growling. Ethan chuckled. "You've never changed. Stop being stubborn, and feel free to eat more." Olivia's already cold expression turned even colder. She spoke to Ethan with indifference. "Ethan, did you think that our relationship could be like before again? When you made me angry back then, I threw a tantrum so you could appease me with only a few words. Is that what you think it is?" In the few days after she came back, they had never breached this topic. But now, Olivia got to it straight away. "Things were over between us a long time ago. You can trap me for now, but you can't bind me forever. We'll never be together again." Chapter 453. Olivia's voice was firm and decisive. It was obvious that she no longer had any love for him, she only harbored hatred. I know, if Olivia had spoken those words in the past, Ethan would be furious. But now, there wasn't even a hint of dissatisfaction on his face. He only felt remorse. "As long as I'm alive, I'll be thinking of ways to exact revenge." "Ethan, stop wasting your time and effort. You're one of my enemies as well. Liv, I only want to treat you well." While they were waiting for the traffic lights to turn green, he held the fruit tea to her mouth. "It's sweet and sour. The taste is quite nice." Unable to withstand the temptation, Olivia took a sip. After getting pregnant, she was fond of sweet and sour foods. Oranges and passion fruits were her favorites. If paired with limes and grapefruits, the refreshing taste would be heavenly. She couldn't get enough of it with just a sip. Holding the cup, she continued drinking. The sweet and sour taste eased the nausea in her stomach, and she felt much better. The sad look on Ethan's face gradually disappeared as well. He brought Olivia to a restaurant they used to frequent. "Aren't we going to the concert? It's still early. Aren't you hungry?" Lowering his gaze, he looked gently at her. "No," Olivia said stubbornly. Ethan wasn't mad about it. He put on a faint smile. "Then keep me company while I eat." With that, he extended his hand. He wanted to take her hand like he used to. But he only felt Olivia's limp hand on his palm. He froze. For a moment, he forgot that Olivia's hand had turned out like this because of him. A look of guilt appeared in his eyes. Olivia put on a mocking smile. "See that? Do you still think we can go back to who we were?" Ethan left with her hand in his. He didn't say another word on their way there. But when they entered the elevator, he would step in front of Olivia so no one else could see her. They went to Olivia's favorite spot in the past. From the high altitude, they could see most of the city and even the coastline in the distance. The lit windows in the city looked like stars that had descended upon the earth. They looked wonderful, but Olivia wasn't in the mood to admire the view. Lowering her head, she ate some light food. She was guarding against the nauseousness, but her stomach had decided to be nice to her this time. She didn't feel nauseous at all. Olivia finally noticed that most of the food tonight had a tangy flavor. There was not an oily dish in sight. Even for the main course, Ethan had chosen pasta instead of steak. The waiter served the wine they loved in the past. Ethan spoke up. "Some lime juice for her, please." Olivia stared at him with suspicion. Ethan explained calmly, "I heard that you have had digestion problems recently. So, you can't consume anything spicy or stimulating." "That's right." As Olivia ate the fruit pizza, she couldn't help but wonder if he knew about her pregnancy. If he did, then it wouldn't make sense for him to stay quiet about it. Olivia felt that the man in front of her was hiding even more than before. She couldn't fathom his thoughts at all. Ethan was very gentlemanly that night. He not only finished dinner with her, but he also kept her company throughout the concert. But Olivia was so sleepy that she began nodding off before the concert ended. When her head leaned against Ethan's shoulder, Ethan was stunned. He then angled his body to look at Olivia's peaceful face. He wondered when was the last time she touched him of her own accord. He didn't budge, fearing that he might wake Olivia up. When Olivia woke up, she realized that she wasn't in the Manor of Roses, nor was she at the concert venue. Turning around to look, she found herself sleeping on an airbed. Getting off the bed, she emerged from the tent and spotted Ethan nearby. He was crouching and catching fireflies. Chapter 454. As the weather turned warmer, the fireflies were also becoming more active. Their glow dotted the silent night. A cool breeze blew past, and Olivia sneezed. It was only then that Ethan straightened up. He walked toward her with a glass bottle in his hand. He must have been catching the fireflies for a while now. There were around a dozen fireflies in the glass bottle. It wasn't as magnificent as the one on the island, but the blinking lights in the bottle were still quite pretty. "Are you hungry?" Ethan naturally passed the bottle to her, but Olivia didn't take it. He casually hung it on the tent. Then, he took off his coat and draped it over Olivia's body. "It's getting warmer, but it's still cold in the mountains. You didn't eat much for dinner, so you must be hungry." "Look what I prepared for." Olivia looked at him and frowned. "Why did you bring me to a place like this?" Taking her hand, Ethan led her to the roll-up table. There may be an Aquarids meteor shower tonight. I remember you saying that you wanted to wait for a meteor shower." In the past, her heart was filled with dreamy things, and she loved everything wonderful. Back then, Olivia dreamed about waiting for the meteor shower with her beloved. She thought that it would be the happiest time of her life. But Ethan was very busy back then, so he kept putting it off. Olivia would smile and say, "It's okay. We have all the time in the world. I can wait. It's not urgent, anyway." But no one expected life to be filled with uncertainties. The "all the time in the world" she spoke of only lasted a few years. Fresh ingredients were laid out on the roll-up table, and the barbecue grill was lit. String lights in the shapes of stars and moons were hung across the canopy. Everything was extremely beautiful. It was the camping trip she longed for. She would feast on barbecue in the dark outdoors as she watched stars falling from the sky. He never forgot about it. Olivia stood under the lights. There was no expression of joy on her exquisite face. Instead, she stared coldly at Ethan as she spoke in a faint voice. 18-year-old Olivia wanted to watch a meteor shower with her beloved. Do you know what 21-year-old me wants to do? Ethan pursed his thin lips. I do. You want to get revenge. Olivia stared at the handsome face. In the past, her heart would skip a beat when she glanced at him. But now, she only had complicated feelings in her heart. She felt regret and hatred. But there was no love in her heart. No, if there truly is a meteor shower, I want to make a wish. Olivia took a step forward. In her flats, she stood on tiptoe as she leaned in to speak in Ethan's ear. She said, I wish I never meet you again until the day I die. If she hated him, she would still want to get back at him. But she didn't want to get involved with this man any longer. Ethan held his breath. He parted his lips, hesitating. In the end, he said, Do you hate me that much? Yes, I only feel hate and disgust toward you. A gust of wind blew past, causing the lights on the tent to sway. The dull yellow glow quivered. Remember how much you hated me in those 2 years. That's how much I hate you now. This feeling is only going to get stronger. Ethan, there is betrayal, deceit, hatred, and regret between us. But there will never be love. I feel disgusted every time I see your face. As Olivia's voice reached his ears, Ethan felt his body tremble. He realized how Olivia had felt when he hurt her back then. Every word was like a sharp blade. There wasn't any blood in sight, but he was in unbearable pain. Chapter 455. The air between the two seemed to stiffen. Ethan's voice was a little hoarse. Liv, what if I told you I never betrayed you? You never betrayed me, Olivia sneered. Then tell me, who are Connor's parents? His face is almost the same as yours. Are you going to tell me that Marina referenced your face while sculpting him out of clay? Ethan said, This is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Connor is. Before Ethan could explain it, his phone rang. It was a customized ringtone he set specially for Marina. This used to be the ringtone Olivia feared the most. It didn't matter what she was doing with Ethan at that moment. As soon as the ringtone sounded, he would abandon everything and run toward Marina. Olivia looked at him with a mocking expression on her face. Why aren't you picking up? What are you scared of? I'm not your wife anymore, so I don't even care about. Ethan rejected the call right away. Holding Olivia's hand again, he had a serious expression on his face. Listen, Liv, this is a very important matter. Before this, I kept it a secret because the phone rang again. This time, the caller wasn't Marina, but Mina. If Mina was calling him at this hour, then it must be about the child. Ethan had no choice but to answer the call. What's the matter? Mina, who had always been calm, sounded very anxious at that moment. Mr. Miller, something happened to Master Connor. Where are you? What happened to Connor? Mrs. Miller said that she wanted to look after the children, so I brought Master Connor and Miss Arena over. I was changing Miss Arena's diapers when Master Connor opened the door without me knowing. Then, he fell from the stairs. Olivia was standing so close that she could hear Mina's sobbing voice. When she heard that something had happened to Connor, her expression immediately changed. She behaved as if it was her son who got hurt. Is he okay? Master Connor fainted on the spot. He was already sent to the emergency room to be examined. I'm so sorry, Mr. Miller. It's all my fault. Ethan ended the call. There was an apologetic look on his face. I'm sorry, Liv. I can't be around for the meteor shower tonight. Something happened to Connor, so I have to go back right now. Go, then. I'll get someone to send you back. It's okay. Since I'm here already, I'll leave after the meteor shower. I may not have a chance like this ever again. Reaching out, Ethan caressed her head. Don't worry, we have all the time in the world. I promise I'll watch it with you next time. With that, Ethan let go of her and hastily walked away. He had left bodyguards to watch the area, so he wasn't worried about Olivia's safety. Olivia watched as Ethan left in a hurry. His scent still lingered on the coat draped over her. She felt like he was embracing her. Without any feelings of longing, Olivia removed the coat. She began cooking the food over the grill. She hated dining alone in the past. No matter how late it got, she would wait until Ethan came back. But now, she felt that eating alone was fine as well. There were no worries or any unnecessary feelings. She enjoyed the night breeze in the mountains, listening to the chirping of the insects. This was the freedom she had yearned for in the past. After getting diagnosed with stomach cancer, she stopped eating anything spicy. She thought that she would miss the taste after so long. But as soon as the spicy food touched her tongue, her nose turned red, and she began tearing up. It was a perfect example of how easily a person's habits could change. For more than a decade, she loved spicy food. She could barely stand it if she hadn't had spicy food in half a year. If even a decade-old habit could change, much less could be said of people. Putting down her cutlery, Olivia got up and took the firefly bottle. She went to the valley and then opened the lid of the bottle. Free from their prison, the fireflies spread their wings and danced freely in the air around her. These beautiful insects should not be caged just for humans to admire them. They belong to the vast wilderness. Olivia decided to let them enjoy the freedom in her stead because she couldn't do it herself. As Olivia looked up at the fireflies, she noticed a sudden flash of light on the horizon. The light streaked across the sky and disappeared. Chapter 456. Olivia realized that it was a meteor. She had waited many times for meteors since she was young. Even after staying up countless nights, she never managed to catch them. But the meteors had come so suddenly tonight that she didn't even prepare for it. When she came to her senses, she had already put her palms together. There was a single thought on her mind: she wished for Connor to be safe. Olivia opened her eyes. Brilliant silver light filled her vision. The white meteors dragged their long tails behind them. One by one, they streaked across the vast expanse of the sky. It was breathtakingly beautiful. Olivia felt like she was dreaming. But it was true, she was in the middle of a meteor shower. She couldn't care less about not seeing Ethan ever again. She was only thinking of the baby in her tummy. Olivia made two wishes. Firstly, she wanted Connor to be safe. Secondly, she wished that she could give birth to the baby without any problems. When Ethan was rushing back to the city, he also saw the stars falling from the sky. He made a wish to the meteors. If they could truly make wishes come true, his only desire was to live to a ripe old age with Olivia. He knew that Olivia would find his wish pathetic, but he had never changed his wish to grow old with Olivia. When Ethan hastily arrived at the hospital, Connor had already woken up. When Connor saw Ethan, he said with teary eyes, "Daddy." Ethan pulled the child into his embrace. Stepping forward, Mina explained, "The checkup is complete. Fortunately, there's nothing serious with Master Connor. Why would he fall from the stairs out of the blue?" Ethan was furious. After all, Connor was an intelligent boy, and he had developed faster than other children his age. He was more than a year old, so he would know better than to fall from the stairs. Connor would hold on to the railing in dangerous places like that. It might be an accident. An accident, Ethan snorted. He knew his son very well. "Have you checked the surveillance?" "No, I've been holding Miss Arena all this while." "Are you suspecting that this isn't an accident, Mr. Miller?" "There can't be these many accidents." Ethan gently caressed Connor's head with his fingers. "Tell me, why did you want to leave?" Connor said pitifully, "Mommy." "Want mommy?" Ethan's heart ached. Since he brought Olivia home, he dropped hints that he would get the child home. But Olivia had been cold about it. Their relationship was broken because of Olivia's hand and the incident with Leia. Now, Olivia had to endure the pains of pregnancy as well, so Ethan gave up on the idea. He sighed. Connor was quite brilliant, to say the least. When Connor was a few months old, Ethan showed him Olivia's photo and told him that this was his mother. Ethan thought that the young child wouldn't understand. But Connor had committed it to memory. Connor never called Marina his mother. But every time he met Olivia, he was very close to her. This was the natural connection due to them being blood related. "Good boy, you'll meet her one day." Ethan hugged Connor. After leaving Brent some instructions, he went to Marina's ward. After Marina received treatment, her life was no longer in danger. Her health was improving as well. Unfortunately, her legs were broken, so she might not be able to stand again. She leaned against the bed as she watched Ethan entering with the child in his arms. Her pale face looked weary. "Ethan, is he all right?" "Fortunately, he's not gravely injured. He fainted from falling, and he had a mild concussion. It's not serious." It was only then that Marina sighed in relief. She reached out to touch Connor's cheek. "Be more careful in the future, Connor." Awkwardly enough, she had only extended her hand when Connor buried his face in Ethan's chest. Marina could never understand what was going on. Connor was like an ungrateful kid. No matter how well she treated him, he refused to acknowledge her as his mother. Ethan found an excuse. "He's still recovering from shock. You should rest." "Ethan," Marina reached out. "Won't you spend time with me?" "I don't think I can do that. It's time for the children to go to bed." With that, Ethan didn't even look back. He placed Connor onto the baby seat. "Good boy, I'll take you to your mommy right now. She's the only mommy you have." Chapter 457. Connor's eyes lit up when he heard the word, "Mommy." Gripping the seatbelt with his tiny hands, he mumbled, "Mommy, Mommy." Now that things had come to this point, Ethan no longer wanted to hide the truth about Olivia's child. Back then, he wondered if she would be glad to know that the child hadn't died and that the child had been alive. And well, perhaps she wouldn't hate him that much then. While Ethan was driving, his phone rang. He answered the call. Brent's stern voice sounded over his Bluetooth earphones. "Bad news, Mr. Miller." "What is it?" "We fixed the hacked surveillance cameras. Master Connor's fall wasn't an accident. Someone pushed him. If Master Connor wasn't agile enough to stop rolling, he might have gotten a worse ending." Ethan felt his heart skip a beat. Marina was transferred to a private hospital. The hospital had built a huge spiral staircase for aesthetic purposes. If Connor rolled from the top of the staircase to the bottom, the results would be unthinkable. The doctors and nurses happened to be making the rounds back then. When they saw Master Connor falling, they quickly helped him up. The culprit took the chance to escape as well. If the doctors weren't there, that culprit might have done even more harm to Master Connor. Ethan knew that things weren't as simple as they seemed. But when he heard it for real, he still felt startled. "Did you find out who they are? Are they related to Toxic Hive?" The culprit had a strong and huge build. He doesn't seem to be from Toxic Hive. Instead, he looks more like someone who underwent special training in the community. Ethan stepped on the brakes. Connor was playing around in the back seat, and his head wobbled with the inertia. "Daddy." Reaching out, Ethan caressed his head and coaxed him gently. "It's okay." Brent continued, "I've already sent you the surveillance footage. To prevent any other accidents, I assigned some more bodyguards to protect you. They'll catch up to your car soon." "Okay." Ethan ended the call. Then, he played the video. The man on the screen was wearing a large cap, which was lowered on purpose. Only his mouth was exposed, but even that was covered by a fake beard. He was standing upright, and he had a strong and muscular body. When he reached out to push Connor, the strong muscles on his arm were outlined against his clothes. Toxic Hive members were skilled in medicine, so most of them had slender builds. Ethan could guess who he was from his posture, figure, and aura. He was either retired from the Special Forces or a professional assassin and was not part of the Toxic Hive. Ethan's expression turned dark. His fingers had just touched a cigarette when he heard the child in the back seat mumbling. He moved the cigarette box away. He suspected that his identity was exposed. If that was the reason, then anyone close to him would be in danger. "Mommy, Mommy." Connor still didn't know what had happened. There was a clear gleam in his eyes, and he didn't sense any danger. Ethan smiled in exasperation. "Sorry, kid, I have to break my promise again." No matter who the culprit was, it was obvious that they were targeting Connor. Ethan didn't dare to underestimate them. His utmost priority right now was to send Connor somewhere safe. People like him had too much blood on their hands and had seen many cruel things. If it truly were those people, their tactics would be crueler than the last. In the past, after his subordinates fell into their hands, they were dismembered and sent back to him. Those people might do even worse to a little child like Connor. He didn't want to experience that pain again. Ethan gently patted Connor's smooth face. "Sorry, Connor, we won't be able to see Mommy tonight." Chapter 458. When Connor heard that, he immediately began to cry. He shouted, "Mommy, want Mommy." Connor was a good child, and he rarely cried. But when it came to Olivia, he would cry sorrowfully. Ethan sighed helplessly. "One last time, then. We have to leave right after seeing Mommy, okay?" Connor didn't understand what Ethan meant. But he was happy as long as he could see his mother. There were still tears on his face as he nodded obediently. Reaching out, Ethan wiped away the tears in the corners of Connor's eyes. He also wiped Connor's saliva while he was at it. "Come, let's go see Mommy." The dim yellow lights blinked around the inflatable tent, looking like little stars. Connor should have been fast asleep at that hour, but at that moment, his eyes were wide in excitement. Before they even arrived, he wriggled out of Ethan's arms. Then, he ran toward the tent with his short legs. Olivia didn't feel like sleeping. She was sitting on the rug, counting the stars in the sky. Unexpectedly, a small child entered her field of vision. She was in disbelief, and she felt like she was dreaming. In the past, if Ethan were called away by Marina, he would never come back. This time, he didn't just come back, but he had also brought Connor, who Olivia was worried about. "Mommy, Mommy!" Connor joyfully ran toward her. Overwhelmed, Olivia reached out and caught him. Connor happily nuzzled against her face. He was upset that Olivia was only holding him with one hand. He mumbled, "Hug, Mommy, hug." Olivia looked at him with a troubled expression. "My hand is hurt, so I'm afraid I can't hug you anymore, Connor." Connor didn't understand what she meant. He reached out to grab her right hand. But he found her palm drooping limply, and there was no strength in her wrist. He blinked. Then, he looked at his own hands. He seemed to have understood something. He kissed the scar on Olivia's wrist. "Mommy hurt." When Olivia heard that, she couldn't hold it in anymore. Any mother would feel their heart soften when they were around children. Her tears dripped onto Connor's hand. "Silly child. You're such a silly child." Connor reached up, wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes. "Don't cry. Mommy, don't cry." Olivia forced a smile. "Okay, I won't cry." Reaching out, Ethan carried her off the ground. "Why are you sitting on the ground? You might catch a cold." Connor followed them with his short legs. Connor had warmed Olivia's heart, so Olivia didn't speak too coldly at that moment. "Is Connor all right?" she asked calmly. "He's fine. He had a mild concussion, but it's not serious." "Don't worry. That's good to hear." Olivia got out of his arms. She patted the airbed with her left hand, gesturing for Connor to get onto the bed. Lifting Connor by the hips, Ethan helped him onto the bed. Connor hastily crawled up to Olivia. "Mommy, sleep." Reaching out, Olivia scratched Connor's nose. "All right, Aunt Olivia will hug you to sleep." Connor didn't like how she called herself. "Your mommy." Olivia didn't argue with him. Instead, she thought of something as she looked at Ethan. "You were going to tell me something about Connor, right?" Ethan swallowed the words he was about to say. Someone was targeting the child, but he didn't know where they were from at that moment. He decided that it would be better if less people knew about it. "It's nothing. I was going to say that Connor missed you." Olivia had a feeling that this wasn't what he wanted to say, but she couldn't figure out what he was trying to say, either. She gave up. Since he didn't want to say it, she wouldn't pursue the matter. Olivia lay on the bed with Connor in her arms. The sunroof was open so they could see the night sky. Connor pointed at the sky, smiling as he said, "Mommy, look. Stars." Ethan lay down on the other side. Connor took each of their hands, smiling happily. "Daddy, Mommy." Chapter 459. Olivia opened her mouth to argue. But then, she remembered that Connor didn't understand these things at all. So, there was no point in explaining. Moreover, she only wanted him to live peacefully and grow up in bliss. Soon, Connor closed his eyes. He leaned against Olivia's chest, sleeping soundly. There was even a sliver of saliva on the corner of his mouth. Reaching out, Olivia wiped it away. She gazed at him with a gentle look. She wondered if the baby in her tummy would look like Connor when they were born. After all, they were both Ethan's children. Liv. In the silent night, Ethan's voice sounded a little hoarse and weary as it broke the silence. Olivia's expression turned cold. She didn't say anything, waiting for Ethan to continue. Ethan cleared his throat. After thinking for a long while, he finally spoke. Connor likes you, and I know you like him too. You can treat him like your son. Olivia snorted. Marina's leg is broken, so she can't take care of children for you. Now, you're trying to get me to take care of your son. In your dreams. Who said that I like him, anyway? Get away from me. Go to your daddy. With that, Olivia shoved the innocent Connor into Ethan's arms to prove that she didn't like him. She even spoke in a fierce tone. Connor smacked his lips in his sleep, looking like a little bird. He moved closer to warmth, reaching out to grab Ethan's shirt. He even mumbled, "Mommy." Olivia instantly felt guilty inside. She didn't know what she was doing. She shouldn't have taken her anger out on the innocent child. In the dim light, Ethan could see the guilt on Olivia's face. He knew that Olivia had always been a kind person. Ethan gently pushed the child into Olivia's arms. He wanted Connor to spend more time with Olivia. Liv, this is what children are like. No matter how many times you push him away, he'll still run up to you and call you, Mommy. Olivia averted her gaze, but she didn't push Connor away. Instead, her fingers subconsciously wrapped around the child's waist, pulling him closer. But she still spoke defiantly. Ha, I'm not his biological mother, anyway. If I want children, I can give birth to them myself. Her words had ended the conversation. Ethan didn't mention it. Instead, he looked tenderly at her. Liv, I know that you love children. We'll have more children in the future. When Olivia heard that, she felt a chill run down her spine. She turned to look at Ethan. Ethan's face was filled with tenderness, and the emotions in his eyes seemed to envelop her. Olivia frowned in dissatisfaction. Do you think I'll forgive you after everything that happened between us? Wake up, Ethan. You can't fix a broken mirror, just like how you can't turn back time. Do you think I had peace of mind when I stayed with you? The man reached out to her. His slender fingertips touched her eyebrows, smoothing the creases of her frown. His voice was soft to a fault. Liv, I'm not like you. No matter what you do to me, I will never blame you. Even if you betray me, I will never let go of you. Olivia felt a sense of discomfort. She looked coldly at Ethan. If it was only a feeling just now, this time, she could sense that Ethan was hinting at something. She wondered if he already knew. Ethan's hand slowly moved to her back. Olivia was creeped out, and she almost jumped. Calm down, Liv. I won't hurt you. His gaze was weirdly obsessed. But from his thin lips came the most touching words in the world. I love you. No matter what you become, I'll always love you. I will never let you go, not even after death. Chapter 460. Olivia was used to Ethan's coldness. She had thought that the scariest part of Ethan was his cruelty. But at that moment, she realized something. The straightforward attacks were nothing compared to the smile on his face and the affection in his eyes. Those were even scarier. Also, she was just guessing. She didn't dare reveal that she was already pregnant. Ethan, I won't love you. I never will. Ethan didn't mind. We still have a long way ahead of us, Liv. Olivia didn't argue with him. She curled up, not daring to provoke Ethan too much. She wouldn't want to argue with someone who had lost his mind. If she ever did, she was probably tired of it all or complaining that he was the one sick of life instead. The only thing she could do right now was focus on development. She would wait until Jeff had recovered and when the baby in her tummy had grown up and was born successfully. Then, she would try to live a little longer. Before that happened, she couldn't get involved in unnecessary trouble. Seeing that Olivia had closed her eyes, Ethan gently covered her with a blanket. Then, he leaned in and planted a kiss on her forehead. Don't even try to leave me, Liv. That's a very foolish idea, understand? It was June, but she felt cold all over her body. She didn't dare to move. Even if Ethan wasn't insane, he was probably halfway there. The next morning, she woke up to the chirping of the birds in the mountain. She subconsciously looked to the side, realizing that both Ethan and Connor were gone. She washed up briefly in the tent. Then, she pulled back the tent curtain. The refreshing morning breeze soothed all the unhappiness in her heart. Olivia greedily took a deep breath. She felt like the sadness in her chest had all disappeared. Somewhere nearby, Kelvin was somehow fighting with a squirrel. With his hands on his hips, Kelvin said furiously, "How dare you get up there? Come down if you dare." There were two squirrels on the tree, one bigger than the other. The big one dropped a small pine nut on Kelvin's head. "How dare you hit me? I'm telling you, you're done for." With that, he rolled up his sleeves and began to climb the tree. He looked determined to fight the squirrels to death. Meanwhile, Brent was boiling the water. He seemed to be preparing some sort of breakfast. When he noticed Olivia's gaze, he looked at her with a friendly expression and greeted her. "Mrs. Miller." A distance away, some bodyguards were checking the situation. Some were building a small clay stove, but Olivia didn't know what they were doing. There was smoke coming from the stove. Olivia looked around her. Brent told her, "Mr. Miller and Master Connor are in the valley ahead of us." "I don't care where he is," Olivia replied coldly. Then, she went in the opposite direction on purpose. Soon, she heard a familiar voice calling out for her. "Mommy, Mommy." Olivia was tossing pebbles by the creek. She turned around to look at Connor. Connor was running quite fast. Still, the terrain was different from the flat floor of his home. Olivia stood up, saying, "Slow down. Don't rush." As she spoke, she ran toward Connor. In the end, despite her efforts, she was too late. Connor was holding something in his hands, mumbling, "Flour." He tripped over a small rock, losing his balance and taking a great fall. "Connor." Olivia hastened her pace in worry, running over to Connor. Connor got up on his own. Acting like nothing had happened, he ran over and picked up the flower crown. There was an innocent smile on his face. "Mommy, flower." Olivia examined the item. It was a beautiful flower crown, and the flowers were freshly picked. They were still blooming vibrantly. Connor urgently held up the flower crown, gesturing with his limbs. "Daddy, pick." Seeing that Olivia wasn't reacting, he reached out and tugged at her skirt. "Mommy, where?" He kept patting his head to convey his thoughts. Olivia crouched down. Connor happily placed the flower crown on Olivia's head. She had seen this exact scene in her dreams.